Welcome to today's edition of Crypto Corner at InvestorIdeas.com. News on what's driving the cryptocurrency market. Hello everyone, this is Sam Mowers here. Welcome to a special edition of the Crypto Corner podcast. This one features an interview with Brad James. Brad James is the organizer of the Mining Conference, a 3-day community-oriented crypto mining event. In our interview, Brad discusses his own background in crypto, the importance of understanding cycles in the crypto market, the state of crypto mining, and the mining conference itself, as well as many other topics. For more info on Brad James, check out his website over at bradleyjames.co, and for more on the mining conference, check out theminingconference.com. Now, without further ado, here is Brad James. Brad, thanks for coming on Crypto Corner. Could you maybe just start off, just briefly tell us about yourself and how you got involved in the crypto space?
No problem. Thanks for having me, Samuel. I'm Brad James. I run a company that focuses on training and development, as well as placing retail and large clients and hosting facilities for Bitcoin and crypto mining around North America and South America now. So I've been doing that for about 5 years. Prior to that, I got into Bitcoin in 2013, and like most of us, decided to sell off all of our coin at some point in time. Now regretting it years later. And then in 2016, got into Bitcoin mining specifically with a mentor of mine. And then in 2017 was approached by a peer to build an at-scale facility here in the US. And at the time that was like 1 to 2 megawatts. And now since then, we've been building facilities, finding best practices and developing best practices. And now we train and develop the talent that's going to run, own, operate all of those facilities around the country. In fact, we've ran 500 people through our program called the Build a Mine Bootcamp just since last year. And out of those 500 people, we know of at least 30 different mines that are in build or have been built and are up and running since December of last year. Beyond that, we put on the mining conference, and we work with a lot of other peers in terms of filling the talent gap and filling the ecosystem to professionalize the Bitcoin and crypto mining industry. It's a big focus of ours and our teams, and we're really working to make sure that as we move forward, the mining industry, the supply side of Bitcoin, the supply side of crypto, can stabilize and become more professional and be looked at as just another normal industry that's making positive growth and positive change in the world.
For those who might not be familiar, can you just talk a bit more about the Bitcoin mining conference itself?
Sure. Yeah, the mining conference, we've held 2 of them. The first one was called Scott's Conference. From a marketing standpoint, it made sense. And we just ran the second one at the beginning of October of 2022. The mining conference is focused on building all the players in the ecosystem, the mining side of it, bringing them together in one location to help collaborate, work together, identify new partners, and create new solutions. The mining conference itself, we had over 70 speakers, over 55 presentations over the course of 3 days down in Austin, Texas. And it was really a really good experience for all of the attendees who were there. Most of the speakers and panels were workshop-based. What that means is that unlike a lot of other crypto conferences where it's focused mostly on panelists, we actually put together tactical tracks so people could come in, learn things, and then deploy them on Monday. The goal of this is to really help accelerate the learning curve and make it easier for people to get into the mining world, as well as help them accelerate their growth in building their businesses or their organizations. Whether they're brand new miners trying to figure out what is Bitcoin, crypto, what is mining, all the way to the people building at-scale facilities of 100 megawatts and everywhere in between, along with service providers like insurance companies, manufacturers and suppliers, and even helping to get a number of software companies and other what you would call tangential technical businesses up and off the ground. It's a great experience. It becomes a fun experience for everybody in attendance, and we focus on making it family friendly. What that means is most of the people in this industry, they come and their significant other or their family don't really understand what Bitcoin or crypto is, let alone mining. And so we make it family friendly. So we had a lot of kids running around learning about what is Bitcoin, what is crypto, and we even have began to figure out ways to introduce it to them in order to help build these businesses and organizations. Because when a family's involved, you add a ton of stability to that business. You add a ton of different perspectives to that business. And because of that, we're able to serve a broader audience and simplify it for people getting into the industry.
Now, for a lot of people, I think the perception is that the actual mining of cryptocurrencies, in the early days, you could do it yourself. It was a more grassroots kind of thing, but nowadays it's kind of been taken over by huge companies listed on major exchanges and stuff. Is what you're saying at the mining conference, you're kind of pushing back against that and to some extent?
I wouldn't say we're pushing back against it.
Hmm.
I would say that in any strong industry, you have a variety of businesses and sizes of businesses. You have the mega businesses, right? The big tech giants, for example. You also have small technical companies building in their 1 to 5 man shops where they're developing innovative technology. So our belief and our goal in growing this ecosystem, and that doesn't just mean the mining facilities, right? That means insurance providers, that means technical providers, that means manufacturers, that means anything and everything included in this ecosystem is you're going to have the big giants, the publicly traded companies. You're going to have the large companies of maybe 100 people, but they're still privately held, 100 to 200. Then you're going to have medium and small and micro companies who come in and help to develop the industry, because the smaller businesses are able to navigate and pivot and make adjustments much faster, as well as the risk tolerance of those smaller businesses. They can navigate all of those ins and outs or fit a specific niche. For example, just in the mining facilities example, is we have a number of facilities that popped up where they're serving custom audiences, where it's not just, I will only place these Bitmain S19s. No, they're taking on prototype ASIC devices, running them in a facility to help give the same power advantages that one might get in a larger facility. The difference is because it's a small micro minery, they're only serving 1 to 3 or maybe 10 clients, but that's 1.5 to 2 megawatts. So you're talking less than 600 units, which is very navigable for 1 to 3 people to manage. By us doing that, we create a broader industry. We allow for more innovation, and that also allows for creativity and eliminating the barrier to entry for those retail miners, for example, who only have 1 to 5 units. Now I can actually go place it, and I can place it, maybe it's in my hometown of 10,000 people, or maybe it's just 45 minutes away if I'm in a metropolitan area in a town that's just outside of my area, and I can drive to it and see the facility, get to know the owners and the operators of the facility, troubleshoot things together. Basically, at the end of the day, to build a strong industry, you need the big guys to be the pillars, but you also need this diversity of perspectives and different offerings from those small businesses. So we're not pushing back against the big guys. What we're doing is we're trying to go, hey, you guys are serving as a core, but we all know we're all trying to do too much anyway. So why don't we open this up, build some collaboration, learn from the big guys, learn from the people who've been in it and built those big companies, and deploy, hey, we can't solve this one sliver. We can't serve this sliver of the community, but maybe you can. So part of our growth and part of the platform that we're building in the community is saying, hey, if you don't fit the bill at one of these big publicly traded companies, we have a community called the Micro Minery Club, where if you're a professional service provider, you're building a smaller mine, you're trying to figure out where you fit in the industry because you believe so much in Bitcoin and crypto and where DeFi is going. This is an opportunity for you to come in, collaborate, learn from the experienced mega companies, and then deploy and go, hey, they're not serving this segment of the community. But if I work with Brad, the Micro Minery Club, the mining conference, I come to this conference, I'm going to make some brand new connections, and I'm going to find my sliver of this industry that I can serve and serve it well. I think that's the big thing, is that in a growing, developing industry, you have to have people who are entrepreneurs who are bootstrapping in order to solve some of the complex problems because they're willing to take it on. Because initially, it's not just about hitting the metrics on the financial sheets. It's about creating a solution and serving a segment of the community that is important to the growth of the industry.
From a mining perspective, could you explain the importance of understanding cycles in the crypto market?
Oh, yeah. I think it's interesting, and I draw a picture on the whiteboard, but I think when you're looking at the industry as a whole, one of the terminologies I've used a lot lately, just as the community has grown, is zoom out, right? If we look at the beginning of Bitcoin, if we look at the beginning of cryptocurrency and DeFi and all of these products and services that are being created around it, just like with any industry, things go in cycles. And they go in cycles because the world is a complex place. Now, that being said, if you zoom out and you look at these cycles specifically in Bitcoin and in mining, you see acceleration in bull markets, and then you see major drops and dips through the floor. And you see it over and over again. We've seen it so much so that you can pinpoint dates where I think the most recent one is that it was 2 cents, and then it was 20 cents 2 years later, and then it was $20, and then it was. So you can see these cycles, and you can see if you zoom out, just like with any new industry, it's going to be this gradual incremental shift, just like in traditional markets. Everything goes through shifts and then it corrects. And then it grows and then it corrects. And then it grows and then it corrects. So people who are mining need to be able to look at those cycles and at least at a high level, be able to identify when should I approach and get in. It's not at the peaks. You have to look at it at the valleys and on the upswings. Once you're on the upswings, you have to make calculated choices to mitigate risks for yourself in order to get the most out of that bull cycle or that bull market that's happening at that moment in time. In the Microminery Club at the mining conference, this was a huge topic of debate and a huge topic of conversation as to, okay, we can't predict these things, but in recession times like right now, people who are interested in mining need to be doubling down on the learning, on the skill building, on the understanding of how this industry works, because over the last 10 years, it's done it every single time. And every single time it crashes, people go, oh, whoa, the market's bad, blah, 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 don't get in. And then literally a year and a half later, they're going, oh, I missed out on it. And this can be seen in all the memes out there if you've been in the industry for a long time. But just look at it from the standpoint of your own perspective, take a step back. Don't necessarily listen to the talking heads on the mainstream media because they have different motivations as to why they're bringing it up. And so for you as an individual in mining, understand the metrics, understand the numbers, and understand where it can lead you. If you learn here first and then figure out how to deploy and get some skill sets around either repairing, building a facility, understanding the software side or a service provider side, right? Whether you're a marketing or an accountant or somewhere in that arena of professional services, you can get in now, learn about it, build a footprint, and then on the upswing, you'll grow very quickly as long as you make intentional choices about how to deploy your resources and mitigate risks so that when it does come back down, you understand, hey, I understand this can happen, but I'm planning for it. And I think that's an important part of anybody in Bitcoin mining, literally anybody running a business or trying to get involved in any industry, especially right now as the dynamics of money increase and the frequency of trades increase.
Sort of related to that, can you talk a bit about the impact of Bitcoin's price and I suppose by extension, the price of cryptocurrencies more broadly, and the cost of energy on mining?
Sure. Specifically speaking, are you in reference to, let's just talk about Bitcoin price first, maybe?
Sure, yeah.
In terms of how it's comparatively to traditional markets.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen that since COVID, markets have been really weird, either based on supply chain or otherwise. And since this recession slowdown, whatever you want to call it, I don't care what you call it, clearly the market isn't as prosperous or as healthy as it was at the beginning of 2022 or back in 2021. We understand that. Since about March, April, when we've realized this dip in the Bitcoin market comparatively to traditional markets or traditional tech stocks or whatever you want to call it. It's ranged at this rate between 17,000 to 22,000 fairly well, and it's withheld against significant drops in other technical companies, even still to today, which is late October, October 27th. So if we look at it from that standpoint, it has a staying power and is ranging. And when it ranges, that means there's strength in it amidst this recession. Now, understanding that fact is just one component. When you bring up the fact of energy costs and everything else, when you're in the mining industry, understanding the energy costs and how that might vary is important in structuring not only your agreements with the power company or your power provider, but also structuring your agreements if you're doing co-location or structuring your forecasts if you're doing self-mining or any blend, right? When you're building out these projections, understanding the range of the maximums that you can handle on the cost side, as well as the minimums that you're going to get on the price side, is really important to understanding how you're going to operate your facility or your mining operation. When we look at it now, everybody's getting hit in certain states with fuel surcharges or other items that they set up with PPA agreements or those types of things. There are plenty of ways to mitigate it if you take the time to read through those things and bring in an expert. For example, we had a couple experts down at the mining conference who talked about when you're negotiating these agreements with those power providers, how do you handle the fuel surcharge clause that typically might be buried in those agreements? Well, that's where they would come in and talk to you and help you navigate, or either through negotiation, education, or working through you and your team to make that happen for you. Again, this is still a very new industry, and we're going to constantly learn along with the power companies. And what I think the power companies, as they learn, they're learning how effective this can be in mitigating their distribution costs of the high rises and high falls in terms of stabilizing the electrical grids when you're talking about the grid, as well as leveraging existing power or power resources that are abandoned because they're just not able to be tapped into for use on the grid. So I think when we begin to look at this more deeply, and we're going to find out probably in the next year or two how well and how effective we are at leveraging resources to generate electricity, and then not only getting more efficient at that, but then also making the grid more efficient by mitigating the peaks and valleys of that usage, which then, if you look at the depreciation or deterioration of those things, helps to alleviate some of those issues as well. I mean, our grid here in North America is built on the grid from after World War II, where they were building it up, and then we built it all up for manufacturing, and then we shifted out a whole bunch of those manufacturing, and a lot of that grid hasn't been used the way it was designed to be used. And so we're seeing deterioration of it. Now we're seeing higher costs in helping to manage it and get it back up and running as manufacturing shifts back over to North America, and watching as Bitcoin mines and crypto mines pop up. But we're also seeing how effective that is in helping to manage those systems as well. And so I think we're going to see obviously increases in those raw resources right now, but over time, what we're going to realize is that the effectiveness of managing a grid or managing our power resources, Bitcoin mining in these facilities actually make it cheaper in the long run, because now we're not starting things up and shutting things down and starting things up and shutting things down. We now actually can build an even cadence on managing these things, which will also make it easier for those power creators or power generators to manage their own operations.
That's actually all I have for questions today, Brad. Is
Cool.
there anything else you want to add before we wrap up then?
Yeah, sure. The one thing I think that I would like to make sure people are understanding is if you're in this industry and you believe in this industry, whether it's mining or Bitcoin or crypto or DeFi, you have a responsibility not only to yourself, but to educate the people around you. The big thing that I pointed out to people who are at this conference, they're all leaders in their communities. And I think people who are invested in this industry need to understand that they are a leader in this industry just by sheer fact of the matter that it's still a very small group of people. And that means you have a responsibility to teach, And through your teaching, you need to be able to share facts, education, and connect it with what people understand and know already. So one of the big things that I would ask people to do if they're watching this, or even you, Samuel, is make sure that people continue to teach and draw people to positive resources that educate, don't sell, right? Educate people on what this means. Educate people on the benefits of what mining can do for your community. Educate people on the long-term concept of what Bitcoin and cryptocurrency does for the world, not only for yourself and your family, but for the broader community in making growth of wealth accessible to everybody around the world, and the transference of money in terms of currency easier, because we are systematizing things and we're removing human error from those aspects long term. It's not perfect right now, but eventually we make incremental changes and tweaks. Like the Lightning Network, for example, is going to be a huge thing for people when they finally realize how to deploy it. For small businesses especially, because now you're eliminating the need for some of those transaction fees. You're eliminating the need for some of those other ancillary things that happen. I mean, you can do it right now on your phone very quickly and instantaneously for those small micro transactions. And what that will allow people to do is to see and understand how money actually is supposed to work in the world. If you understand that it's a tool, you understand that all it is a way for us to do commerce and business and a way for us to build agreements and collaborate, all of a sudden it's no longer a scary thing, because now it's all decentralized. We all can tap into it. It's not controlled by a single entity, and we end up working together to solve problems rather than relying on a few people.
That does it for today's Crypto Corner. If you would like to be a guest or sponsor for this podcast, contact investorideas.com. Investor Ideas reminds all listeners to read our disclaimers and disclosures on the investorideas.com website. And this podcast is not an endorsement to buy products, services, or securities. Investors are reminded all investment involves risk and possible loss of investment. To hear more investorideas.com podcasts, please visit investorideas.com/audio. And a reminder, you can also hear our podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Audible, Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, Spreaker.com, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, and most audio platforms available.